With the early summer light, curtains sway gently by the window, and you're sleeping. Tender dancing on my skin makes me stay in bed a little longer to hear you breathe. Long for those quiet days when the hours drift away, petals fall on the window pane as the clouds above float away. Evening comes with a fading summer light. Twilight air drifting through the window, and you're sleeping. wishing you're on your way. Somebody near is open for tonight. It's not too late. My mind says yes. You've been here for quite some time, but my heart tells me you should stay. And colors, love is for the ones who dare to wait. No use in running when all I really want is to make you stay. My mind says yes, you've been here for quite some time, but my heart tells me you should stay. Screams, let me carry you home. We are dreams, we are candles, we are lights, we are believers, we are safe with each other, with each other. But are we at the end? Are we at the end? Or are we at the start? 129 beats per minute from my heart. Anywhere we go is where I long to roam. Night or day, I'm taking you all the way. 'Cause my heart screams, let